Hence, why this holy day is called Passover, and the reason why we commemorate it. Because the Father struck down all the firstborn of the Egyptians in the middle of the night and passed over the Israelites. The first plague was the water of Egypt, and all its bodies of water being turned into blood. The Father told them to strike the water in the river Nile with the rod, and it would be turned into blood. Moses and Aaron did as the Father commanded, and all the water in the Nile was turned into blood, and the fish in the Nile died. The Nile stank, and the Egyptians could not drink the water from the Nile, and there was blood all throughout the land. Ironically, when the Egyptian sorcerers cast their spells and did the same, Pharaoh's heart stiffened. He rejected them and did not take them seriously. The next plague, or the second plague, is the plague of the frogs. Whereas the frogs came up and covered the whole land of Egypt, and the Father sent them, Moses and Aaron, to Pharaoh with the demand that Pharaoh let God's people go, or he'll plague the whole country with frogs. Again, Pharaoh denied. Moses and Aaron did as the Father commanded, and the frogs came up and covered the whole land of Egypt. But ironically, the Egyptian sorcerers and magicians did the same. And Pharaoh managed to summon Moses and Aaron to plead with the Father on his behalf. In effect, he would let the people go in the wilderness to sacrifice to the Father, their deity, their Elohim. And Moses and Aaron did so, but when Pharaoh would see that there was relief, he would become stubborn, harden his heart, and would not take them seriously. The next plague, or the third plague, was the plague of the vermin, the lice. Lice came upon man and beast, and all the dust of the earth turned to lice throughout the land of Egypt. But this time when Pharaoh's magicians and sorcerers tried to produce lice with their own spells and rods, they could not. In response to this, they tried to convince Pharaoh that this sign and miracle could only be done by the one and only. It was done by the fingers of Yahuwah. Even then, Pharaoh would become stubborn, harden his heart, and would not take them seriously. Another day, on another morning, the Father sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh as he was coming out to the water, with the demands that Pharaoh let God people go so that they can worship the Father. But if he refused to, then the Father would let loose a mass of insects, and that the mass of insects would invade his courtiers, his attendees, the people and their houses, and all the houses of the Egyptians, and the very ground they stood on. Again, to no surprise, Pharaoh refused. And Moses and Aaron did as the Father commanded, and there was a heavy swarm of insects that invaded the Pharaoh palaces and the houses of his advisors. The whole land of Egypt was ruined by the insects. And again, Pharaoh managed to summon Moses and Aaron, but this time he elected to tell them that they can go sacrifice to the Father, but it must be within the land. Moses and Aaron objected that they may not sacrifice what is untouchable or unallowed by the standards of the Egyptians, but that they must go a distance of 3 days into the wilderness and sacrifice as the Father commanded. Pharaoh agreed to let them go with the stipulation that the Israelites don't go far, and that Moses and Aaron plead for him on behalf of the masses of insects that invaded the country. Again, Moses and Aaron did so, and the Father showed him mercy, but when Pharaoh would see that there was relief, he would become stubborn, harden his heart, and would not take them seriously. The next plague, or the fifth plague that the Father afflicted upon Pharaoh, was the disease and pestilence he sent among their livestock, the cattle disease. For the Father warned him, if you fail to let my people go, I will strike your livestock in the fields, the horses, the asses, the camels, the cattle, and the sheep. But I will not touch none of the livestock of the Israelites. Again, Pharaoh refused. Moses and Aaron did as the Father commanded, and the next day all the livestock of the Egyptians died, but of the livestock of the Israelites not a beast died. Pharaoh found this out and still didn't have a change of heart, but he remained stubborn, hardened his heart, and wouldn't take it seriously. Then the Father told Moses and Aaron to take some soot or soup and throw it towards the sky, while in the sight of Pharaoh it should become fine dust and cause inflammation, breaking out in boils all across the land of Egypt. Moshe did as commanded and threw it towards the sky, and it caused an inflammation breaking out on man and beast. But even with this, the Pharaoh remained stubborn, hardened his heart, and wouldn't take it seriously. This was the sixth plague from the Father, the plague of boils that the Father brought upon the Egyptians. The next plague, or the seventh plague, was the plague of the hail and hailstorm. The Father sent Moses to Pharaoh to demand that he let his people go, and if not, then the Father would send all his plagues against Pharaoh, his attendees, and all his people. The Father wanted Pharaoh to know that he could have stretched out his hand and stricken Pharaoh and his people at any time and erased them all from the earth. But nevertheless, he has spared them for the purpose of showing them his power. In the beginning of this passage, the question was, why did the Father stiffen the heart of Pharaoh? And why do he allow Pharaoh's heart to be stiffened over and over again? The Father did it so he can multiply his miracles and miraculous signs against Pharaoh, so he can multiply his plagues, and his strength would be shown among the whole land of the Egyptians and amongst the world. And that was the reason why Father again and again stiffened the heart of Pharaoh, so he can afflict these plagues and these miracles and signs against Pharaoh again and again and again. The Father wanted Pharaoh to know that he could have stretched his hands and stricken Pharaoh and his people any time and erased them from the earth, but nevertheless he has spared them for the purpose of showing them his power. The Father warned Pharaoh through Moses that if you don't let my people go around this time tomorrow, I will rain down a very heavy hail that hadn't been seen in Egypt since the day it was founded, and that every man and beast that is found outside, not having been brought indoors, should perish when the hail come upon them. So the Father told Moses, hold out your arm towards the sky, so that the hail may fall on all the land of Egypt. Moses did as commanded, and the Father sent thunder and hail and fire poured down to the ground, and hail rained upon the whole land of Egypt, such as never seen before since it had been a nation. All throughout the land of Egypt, the hail struck down all that were in the open, both man and beast. Only in the regions where the Israelites dwell, there was no hail. Again, Pharaoh managed to summon Moses and Aaron and claimed, this time I stand guilty. The Father is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Please plead to the Father that there must be an end to all this thunder and hail, and I will let you go, and you should stay no longer. And Moses and Aaron did so. The thunder and hail ceased. But when Pharaoh would see that there was relief, he will become stubborn, harden his heart, and will not take them seriously. Then the Father sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh again. He told them to say, "How long would you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, that they may worship me. For if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I will bring locusts on your territory." And this time his attendees was in fear, and they said to him, "How long should this one be a trap to us? Let the men go to worship their father, their Elohim, their deity. Are you not aware that Egypt is lost?" And Pharaoh finally agreed to let the Israelites go worship the Father. But he said the men can go, but the children was to stay in place. Moses objected. "We will all go, young and old. We will go with our sons and daughters, our flocks and herds, for we must observe the Father's festivals." But Pharaoh said no, for he refused to let them go. So the Father said to Moses, "Hold out your arm over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the whole land of Egypt and eat up all the grasses of the land." Moses did as commanded, and the locusts invaded all the land of Egypt and settled within the territory of Egypt in a thick mass. Never before had there been so much. They hid the entire land from view. The land was darkened. They ate up all the fruit. There was nothing green left in the land. This was the 8th plague the Father afflicted upon Pharaoh and the Egyptians. This was the plague of the locusts. And again, Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron and claimed that he was guilty before the Father, and for the Father to forgive him for his offenses and trespasses, and for them to plead to the Father to remove all the destruction and all the locusts from the territory. Moses and Aaron did so, and the Father removed the locusts. Not a single locust remained in all the territory of Egypt. The Father showed Pharaoh mercy, but when Pharaoh would see that there was relief, he would become stubborn, harden his heart, and would not take them seriously. The next plague, or the 9th plague that the Father afflicted upon Pharaoh and the Egyptians, was the plague of darkness. The 3 days of darkness that the Father sent among all the land of Egypt. A thick darkness, people could not see one another. For 3 days no one can get up from where he was, but all the Israelites enjoyed light in their dwellings. Finally, Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron and eagerly told them, Go worship the Lord, your God. Only your flocks and your herds should be left behind. Even your children can go with you this time." But Moses objected, "You yourself must provide us with sacrifices and burnt offerings. Our own livestock too must go with us." But again, the Father stiffened Pharaoh's heart, and he became stubborn, hardened his heart, and he would not agree to let them go. He then said, "Be gone from me. Take care not to see me again. For the moment you look upon my face, you should die." Moses then replied, "You have spoken rightly. I should not see your face again." All these plagues, the Father's wonderful miracles and signs, and all the back and forth with the Pharaoh, finally led us to the grand final, which is the Father's final plague, the plague that set the foundation for the Passover holy day and the Passover feast days, and why we are to honor, commemorate, and observe it. It is the plague and death of all the firstborn of the Egyptians, man and beast, while the Father passed over the homes of his loved and chosen ones, the Israelites. The Father explained to Moses, "I will bring out one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. And after this, he should let you go. The father said, towards midnight I will go forth among the Egyptians, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt should die. To the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sit on the throne, to the firstborn of the slave, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And there should be a loud cry in all the land of Egypt, such as never been before or will ever be again. Then Yah explained the instructions of the Passover feast in coordination with the Passover offerings. The father instructed them to take a lamb without blemish, a yearling male, and keep watch over him to the 14th day of the month, and that all the congregations of the Israelites should slaughter the lamb at twilight. They should take some of the blood and put it on the doorpost and the lintel of the houses, and the blood on the houses should be a sign for you. When I see blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. As for the lamb, you should eat it roasted over the fire, with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. Do not eat it raw or cooked in any way with water, but roast it over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not leave any of it over until morning. If so, burn it. You should eat it, sandals on your feet, staff in your hand, and you should eat it fast and in a hurry. It is a Passover offering to the Lord. This day should be to you one of remembrance. You should celebrate it as a festival to the Lord throughout the ages. He also instituted that in the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you should eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days you should eat unleavened bread. No leaven should be found in your house for 7 days. You should celebrate a sacred occasion on the first day and a sacred occasion on the 7th day. This is the feast of unleavened bread. So after the father explained the Passover instructions, in the middle of the night he struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the captive and slave, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh arose in the night with all his attendees and all the Egyptians, because there was a loud cry in all of Egypt, and there was no house where someone was not dead. And finally, at last, Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron for the last time. He stated, "Up, depart from me and my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship your father as you said. Take all your flocks and your herds and be gone." So the Israelites journeyed. A mixed multitude of them went up from Egypt with much livestock, both flocks and herds, and the nation of Yashael departed from the land of Egypt. The length of the time that the Israelites lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to that very day, all the ranks of the Lord departed from the land of Egypt. For all that being said, all praise El Shaddai, and Elohim, and Yahashua HaMashiach. All praise and all glory go to the Father, in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son. Amen.
I'ma send my praise to the Father. Allah Abba, He my charger. Depart me from my way, maybe smaller. Allah Abba, He my Father. I was in the maze of the darkness. Yah called me, He restored me. That's why I get all praise to the Father. And regardless, He the author. I'ma send my praise.